Let's see if this works. And is that working?
Yep, that's working.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction, Mark. I am Kate Timmerman. I'm the executive director of the Chicago Quantum Exchange, which I will describe a little bit more in detail about what it is, but kind of at its highest level, it's a consortium of regional universities and national labs that have come together to really advance research and education and workforce development, in partnership with each other and other players on the regional and national and global stage. So I think everyone who's in this virtual room understands kind of where we are when it comes to quantum information science. 50 plus years of physics research and computer science research has kind of come together to get us to the place where we have a good understanding of the fundamentals of quantum mechanics, and simultaneously we are beginning to develop the tools and technologies to help us actually harness those fundamental properties, and really help develop some end use applications for them. So again, I'm sure everyone here knows kind of some of the big potential impacts of quantum technologies. It will have the potential to greatly impact communications, quantum computing, of course, and then quantum sensing, which is something that's very close to my heart because I am not a physicist by training. I'm a neuroscientist. And so the idea that you could precisely measure things like temperature at a subcellular level really excite me. So, all of these different verticals, communications, computing, sensing, really have the opportunity to impact a lot of different academic fields, and then also a lot of industries. Here in the Chicago region, we have a lot of companies and industries that are focused on things like finance and the logistics, many logistics companies here in the area. And, quantum computing, of course, has the potential really to make great strides, particularly when it comes to optimization problems. Both particularly finance companies, are very much need secure communications. And so there's a lot of opportunity kind of across the board. So then again, though we have made significant progress, there's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of kind of fundamental research, but then also engineering and research and development to get us to the place where we have these very, noisy, not non-fault tolerant technologies to get to the place where we have tools and technologies that can be used by end users without a whole bunch of PhDs constantly fixing it and adapting it for other uses. So I think one of the things that the Chicago Quantum Exchange is involved with is helping to marshal and better understand the many different sectors that are needed to invest in quantum information science. So, at the public level, I think everyone has seen over the past year the significant federal dollars that have gone to build up some of these quantum information science centers and institutes coming out of the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy. And honestly, since 2018, when the National Quantum Initiative Act was launched, that in and of itself came after many years of support from DOE and DOD and other funders. And then the NQI Act, additionally provided the support from some of those organizations and organizations like federal organizations like NIST that started and launched the QEDC, the Quantum Economic Development Consortium, that we and many organizations work with. The private sector, of course, is incredibly important, both as a driver of R&D, many of the companies, but then also that they will also, other companies will be the end users of these technologies. And then there's philanthropic support from foundations like the Kavli Foundation and individuals that are needed to really help feed this system. And the reason why we need these investments is, to make those scientific advances, to help develop those new technologies. And, in order to do that, not only do you need people who are currently trained in, physics and computer science and are experts in QIS, but we also need to both continue educating that the next generation, but really to expand that pipeline and build that pipeline. And I suspect many people here are aware of the significant needs in QIS right now when it comes to companies. Many of the companies, and I know Mark is very aware of this, many companies are really having trouble hiring people right now, much less in 5+ years. So part of what the CQE participates is helping to expand that pipeline and help educate students, and then also ensure that as those students move on to the workforce, be it after undergrad or a master's or a PhD, that they have a really broad understanding of the career options available to them, not only within the academy that they've been trained in, but an understanding of what a national lab is and what the career opportunities are there. And then, of course, companies, understanding the many different types of companies and the individual cultures of each companies and where they, with their specific background, might have a good fit. We've talked a lot about companies, particularly larger companies that are already investing in QIS. But one of the other things that's really needed is for organizations like CQE and others to really provide that fertile soil. So as a researcher develops a new technology or a new tool or a new algorithm, they have an understanding not only of the licensing process and if they want to license it to an existing company, but also what it is that what is required in order to actually start their own company. And not only that basic background and education, but understanding where the resources are to help them kind of go off on their own and do that. So it's kind of the landscape of where the CQE, is and was, and why we decided to form. We're founded in 2017, initially as a collaboration between the University of Chicago, Argonne National Laboratory, and FERMI National Laboratory to do a few different things. One, to kind of bring down some of those traditional barriers that occur not only across institutions, but even across different departments and divisions within universities and labs and other organizations, to really bring together the researchers from across these institutions, not only to develop kind of individual PI-PI collaborations, but also come together and marshal support for large scale collaborations that really span a lot of our organizations and companies and nonprofits and the like. And then, of course, as I mentioned, to kind of further advance the education and training of future QIS, quantum scientists and engineers, but also really broadening the participation of young people. Every year we have this slide that's, CQE by the numbers. We have 6 different member institutions. So we started off as University of Chicago, Argonne, and FERMI Laboratory, and have since expanded to include Illinois, Wisconsin, Madison, and Northwestern. Across those institutions, we have 130 researchers. As of 2 weeks ago, we have 18 corporate partners, and every year we have this, this metric that's how much federal funding has gone into and been allocated for CQE institutions. This year is a banner year because within the past 6 months, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign received an NSF National Quantum Leap Challenge Institutes Award. Argonne National Laboratory and FERMI National Laboratory received some of these two of the 5 large DOE Center awards. So we were having a pretty good year this year. Let's see, I've moved things around. So, okay. So as I mentioned, we're comprised of UChicago, Argonne, and FERMI Lab. That all joined in 2017. University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign joined in late 2018, and Wisconsin, Madison and Northwestern joined early in 2020 or 2019. And I think one of the great things about working on a personal note about working with these organizations is every single one of these organizations has quantum and quantum science as a priority. So it's a really phenomenal opportunity to work with these work with these organizations who are, that are individually working to build up their, quantum research and education and programming, but really, have the opportunity to bring them together to help build up, kind of make the sum more than its individual parts and the like. So I want to briefly mention some of the, our core, our 6 members, just because I suspect this audience might not be incredibly familiar. So Argonne National Laboratory is a Department of Energy lab. It's a multi-purpose facility. So they have research, spanning from computer science to fundamental biology and everywhere in between. They have actually a long history of advanced materials development and characterization, and because of that, they're able to apply a lot of that to quantum information science. They have also a long history of high performance computing that they use for quantum simulations and the like. And one of the things that has really come out over the past few years is by coming together as an organization and kind of across other organizations is the community of researchers that have led to things like QNext, which is the Department of Energy lab that was just announced at the end of the summer. And QNext is really focusing on quantum interconnects, so making sure that quantum information can be shared from qubit to qubit, and then hundreds of miles as well, so kind of across different scales. As opposed to Argonne, Fermilab it's a single purpose facility. It's a high energy physics facility, and Fermilab has done a great job of taking taking tools and technologies that they developed for high energy physics experiments and actually, advancing them further for various quantum applications, particularly quantum computing, and also doing the opposite, developing quantum technologies and specifically applying them towards HEP. So as I mentioned before, Fermilab was recently awarded one of these DOE NQI centers, and their center is the Superconducting Quantum Materials and Systems Center, or SQUIMS. Really focusing on superconducting materials, and they do this in collaboration with researchers at Fermilab, many other researchers across other institutions and companies and the like. The University of Chicago has expertise from computer science to the physics program, which are kind of both housed within the Physical Sciences Division, which has been a long-standing, very prestigious organization within the University of Chicago, and also the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering, which just launched within the past decade and is really helping to lead the charge with QIS at the University of Chicago. University of Chicago also has leadership in QNext, and then also HCAN, which is the UIUC NSF Award, which I'll talk about in a second. So the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, is one of our nation's, I think, most robust and long-standing engineering institutions. As we're having conversations with our researchers, with companies kind of across the board, inevitably someone in any individual room has received either their undergraduate or their graduate degree from UIUC, and they have a lot of strengths kind of, again, on the quantum networking, materials and devices and the like, and due to that, they received this NSF Quantum Leap Challenge Institute Award for Hybrid Quantum Architectures and Networks, which we call HCAN. They also are the lead PI on an NSF grant called Q2Work. And Q2Work is an NSF grant, but it partners with the Office of Science and Technology Policy. They have an initiative called the K-12 Quantum Initiative, which aims to develop educational materials and curricula, again, to ensure that more students, have the potential to understand the fundamentals of quantum science at an earlier age, and ideally broaden that pipeline again. And part of what Q2Work does with the K-12 OSTP initiative is, put together working groups and meetings, and then also develop a single online platform to, really make it easy and accessible for anyone to find these opportunities and to kind of get access to educational and outreach material. So, for example, an 8th grade science teacher who wants to show a video to their students on, superposition and entanglement can go to this website when it's launched and find a slew of videos that they can quickly and easily show to their students. In addition to the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, we also have University of Wisconsin-Madison, which has, again, strengths kind of across fields, particularly, cold atoms and the like. And University of Wisconsin-Madison is an active member in both the HCAN award and then also in the QNext out of Argonne. Similarly, Northwestern also has strengths kind of across fields, and they work a lot with Fermilab on their SQUIMS center. So I kind of just gave a brief overview of all of our members, but I mentioned that at the onset that one of the real reasons for starting the CQE is to provide that front door to entities outside of universities and national labs, and one of those types of entities are companies, and we work with companies in a variety of ways, and over the past few years have built up a cohort of now 18 corporate partners. And our first corporate partner was IBM. So we have, companies like IBM that have been investing in QIS for, a long time and have a significant, amount of time and energy and resources allocated to it. And then also organizations, companies like JP Morgan Chase, which just in January really launched their QIS initiatives through the FLAIR program that they run. And then we also have kind of some of these end users of quantum technologies, be it now or in the future. So JPMC, of course, will be an end user, but also Discover, companies like Protiviti, which is a consulting firm, and as they're talking to their clients, their clients are wondering when do I start thinking about QIS technologies, and particularly when it comes to cryptography, like when do I start thinking about post-quantum cryptography and the like. And similarly, we have companies that have been around for 50 plus years, and then we have startup companies like Supertech, which was incubated, which came out of the University of Chicago, and it's currently being incubated at the incubator at Argonne National Laboratory. So, and when we're working with these companies, we work in a variety of ways. Of course, building research collaborations across the scientists, both at the company and at across the CQE, but also really listening to the companies and understanding their workforce needs now and how they see that workforce need changing, and making sure that our students understand kind of the breadth of career pathways available to them. So very briefly, I've kind of discussed some of the research that we've done, and I think some of the things I want to talk about are when it comes to some of those big themes like communication, I think focusing on the impacts, as quantum communication technologies and tools advance, it will have the potential to impact things like national security, elections, telecommunications, the financial sector, and this is an area where we can come together and build help facilitate individual projects, and then also large scale projects like a large scale ground-based quantum network currently being built between Argonne and Fermilab, and ideally to grow to expand to other institutions and connections as well. Quantum computing, of course, that goal to develop a fully realized error-corrected quantum computer is one that I think many people and entities are working on, and together are advancing and helping out with error correction, developing things like algorithms and compilers and the like that will help speed up that process. And then on the sensing side, as I mentioned, things like developing quantum sensors out of different qubit technologies that has the opportunity to impact kind of the fundamental sciences spanning biology and geology and the like, and things like high energy physics, sensing things like dark matter that have only been theorized thus far. And then on the education and workforce front, of course, many of our institutions already have undergraduate degrees, and have for many years in things like physics and computer science. And many of those programs are being tweaked to help educate, undergraduates and make them more quantum aware earlier on. And in particular, some of the CQE institutions have joined an NSF Q-STEAM program that is out of Ohio State. And there are multiple different Q-STEAM Convergence Accelerator awards under this NSF program, but the project out of Ohio State is really aiming to take the existing quantum curriculum that undergraduates don't usually see until they're, let's say, a junior or a senior, and they've already decided they're going to be they're going to get their undergraduate degree in, let's say, physics, and have learned a lot about classical physics, and then all of a sudden they're expected to pivot and understand the quantum physics and do that brain switching, taking that and instead kind of front loading the fun part of QAS, things like these fundamental principles, ideally to the freshman year experience. So the team is working to develop a curriculum that, any student can really learn about QIS, and ideally, that will again broaden that base of students that may go into the program, and may at some point in their careers work in quantum information science. I mentioned the HCAN program, and a part of HCAN at from UIUC develops a variety of outreach and educational experiences at both the undergraduate and graduate level. And then I also mentioned that Q2Work out of UIUC as well. Similarly, UChicago, UIC, UW-Madison, and Northwestern have existing PhD programs. And while they're tweaking those, some of them, like University of Wisconsin-Madison, has developed a master's program in physics and quantum computing, and they're on their second year of that program right now. The CQE also manages an NSF QuizNet program, which is available to any PhD student across the US, so they don't have to be at a CQE institution. And what this QuizNet program provides is funding for graduate students to do collaborative work with people within national laboratories or within companies. And over the years, it is currently funding or has funded more than 60 PhD students for up to 3 years. And currently applications are actually open for our next cohort of students. So if you happen to know of any students, PhD students who are working with or interested in working with a national lab and maybe have some early stage discussion, and they just need a little bit of discretionary funding to help advance the research, this is a great opportunity for them. And one of the things that we also do with these students is every year we come together at least once to not only hear about their research and hear about their experiences, but also to put together a panel discussion about that transition from academia to working within a company or working within a national lab. And particularly with those the students who come on board that first year, it's always really interesting to see how many of them assume that their particular topic, maybe they're a theorist and they think that their theory, their background would not be useful for a large company or any company. And part of what QuizNet does is try to kind of broaden the horizons of the students, but then also help them actually develop a professional network. So when they're ready when they graduate, when they have their PhD and they're ready to leave academia, they not only have an understanding of what careers are available to them, but also, actually know people at various organizations, companies, national labs, so that to help them get their next job. In addition to graduate education, of course, all of our institutions have many postdocs. And then we also work with IBM to put together a postdoctoral training program. So up to 5 postdocs over 5 years, for up to 5 years, do collaborative research. They're housed at any CQE institution, and they do collaborative research with IBM. And so again, it's an opportunity, one, to advance the research, but also for the postdocs to get an understanding of kind of the industry side of research and development. We also acknowledge that this field is progressing so quickly. What happens if you received your PhD in classical physics, 5, 10, 15 years ago, and now you see the, huge number of companies hiring in this field. And so one of the things that we've launched is a certificate, the first set of a certificate programs in quantum engineering and technology. So of course, we built this program, and we aimed to launch it as an in-person 4-day intensive for, let's say, 20 to 30 people. We aimed to launch it in April of this year. Of course, due to COVID, it kind of got rescheduled. And when we launched it this September, we had to do it virtually. That said, we were aiming to really help provide an opportunity for that mid-career professional, someone with a master's degree or PhD, with many years of work experience to join the program and get kind of caught up to speed on a little bit of a refresher on quantum mechanics, which of course they took many years ago, but then also understand the different platforms and technologies that are currently being used for different applications, and understanding what the R&D hurdles are for those different platforms and the advantages and disadvantages, understanding what the materials needs were, and then also, of course, digging in a little bit about communication sensing and metrology. Our next certificate is aiming to launch in spring of 2021. We hope to have the date locked down shortly. But as that program kind of expands, we're figuring out exactly the best way. Do we dig deeper into specific topics within the broader QIS area, or do we try to target different audiences? So it's a really exciting one, and I think I was incredibly pleased, despite the fact that the certificate was virtual as opposed to in person. I was really pleased with how positive the evaluations were from the students. And as I've mentioned multiple times, part of what we try to do is really connect our trainees from undergraduate all the way through the postdoc stage, with industry. We have a few different ways of doing that that I think mostly work for the virtual world. So we have a Quantum Employer Spotlight series. We actually aimed to launch, have a big event last April. That was an in-person event. And when that was shut down due to COVID, we launched this Quantum Employer Spotlight series. So, every month or so, we have an hour-long program for CQE, students and trainees to learn from a single company or 2 companies. And they talk a little bit about, kind of the company's history and whatnot, but then also they talk about their QIS strategy and their hiring, kind of needs. So, not only what their hiring needs are now, but where they anticipate them to be in 5 or in a few years. And also it provides an opportunity for the students to actually ask questions of, the people who are giving the presentations about, specific opportunities right now, like internships and the like. And it's really exciting to see, how many actual connections have come out of that, and how many students have received internships from that or job offers. We also help facilitate internships between companies and national labs and our trainees. And then I mentioned this, April of last year, this in-person event that had to be canceled. And it was this quantum recruiting forum where we were aiming to bring a whole bunch of companies together so students and companies could interact kind of on a larger scale. We're going to try to host something like this virtually, this spring, and I'm excited to see kind of how that turns out in the virtual world. I think one of the things, so the Chicago Quantum Exchange launched in the summer of 2017. I came on board in 2018, and when I came on board, of course, research is at our core. We knew that education and workforce development was going to be incredibly important. I don't think I had a full understanding of how much the CQE would be participating in and working with entities that work on economic development, particularly for the Chicago and Upper Midwest region. So I mentioned how public sector support is so important. That's at the federal level, but some of us, have been really lucky. The state of Illinois and the governor have been incredibly committed to QIS, and in 2019 committed $200 million to help develop facilities and upgrade infrastructure, both in Chicago and downstate at UIUC, to really advance the field as a whole, and do it in an inclusive way that actually helps support the broader economy in the state. And of course, we do this with partnerships like the Quantum Economic Development Consortium, and like organizations like P33, which is a Chicago-focused private sector-led nonprofit that aims to build up Chicago's kind of ecosystem in technology and innovation. And one of their strategies on doing this is by focusing on deep tech. And as part of that, quantum is a priority of theirs. And so we have the opportunity to work with them in a variety of ways. One of the ways that we work with them is they have their boots on the ground and they're talking to companies across the city and across the state about deep tech in general and about quantum. And so we are able to come together to kind of help educate the leaders at these companies that are in the region to help them better understand the potential for these technologies and better understand kind of when they as a company should start thinking about investing in the area. More and more we're focusing on efforts to identify and foster quantum startups, and of course, attract existing companies to Chicago. So this is large-scale companies, but mid-sized companies, small-sized companies. So that's actually a really fun part of our work that I don't think that we fully realized when a few years ago. And then I think this is probably my last slide. I've mentioned a whole bunch of different things. I think one of the things that we really try to do is build community. That was, at its core, one of the reasons that we were founded. And we do that in a variety of ways across the CQE member and partner community. We have workshops on a regular basis, and we actually kind of put out a call for applications from our members and our partners every year. So asking them, to identify collaborative research opportunities or areas that a workshop would help focus dialogue and discussion and help position them for things like federal funding awards. So, within the past year or two, a lot of the workshops were very much focused on, some of these large scale federal funding initiatives that were just announced. Every year we put together a Chicago Quantum Summit. And this is again, one of the plus sides to COVID, if there can be a plus side. We just had our third summit 2 weeks ago. And usually this is an in-person, an in-person summit that does live streaming. So we have a few people join virtually, but usually the in-person event is about 140 people. This year we had more than 1,000 people across 42 countries join, which just was really impressive to see, kind of the broad scale kind of scope and interest of the summit. And then also making sure we're communicating the work that's being done, broadly in Chicago and in the region. And when people like Paul DeBar write an article about, the leadership of the region, we feel the need to make sure that people are aware of this. And then also using things like our newsletter and our website to communicate the research that's being done and the awards and the like. So I think that's kind of broadly the bulk of what I wanted to talk about. There are a lot of things that I didn't talk about here, things that, make me anxious and keep me up at night. How do you continue to advance research collaborations in a variety of ways? diversity and inclusion, particularly when it comes to education and workforce development, and particularly when it comes to building a quantum economy. I think because we are at a place with this field where it's so nascent, and where we see the workforce expanding so greatly, there's a real opportunity to do something in this field that has never been done, and we haven't really successfully diversified other, let's say, physical sciences fields before, and that's something I don't think anyone has a magic wand to figure out what to know what the solution is right now, but that's something that would be we're actively working on doing. And I think that is it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kate. There were a few questions that people typed in, so let me read these. Are these industry partners mostly doing foundational quantum computing research, or are they thinking about things like how to embed API calls to AWS Bracket into an otherwise classical process?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, they're not completely focused on quantum computing, right? A lot of these companies, are working on materials development and tools development and devices that, yes, can be used for quantum computing, but also sensing and communication. So I think that's something we want to kind of keep in mind as well. And I think they do tend to, the ones that are actively doing research are the ones that have been invested the longest, tend to do a little bit of both, but definitely the former as well. So yeah, I think it kind of spans. And then I think, of course, with the companies that are very applications focused, I think they're going to be the ones who are focusing on things like APIs and the like.
Good. So another question, are there any quantum computing programs available for people who are already working in IT?
Quantum computing programs, like educational programs, or?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think the one, I think the two that, we always hear about and talk about, MIT has had a certificate program in quantum computing for many years. It's an online thing. Many people have taken it. We actually intentionally built our certificates program to be not quantum computing focused, to be broadly quantum information and science and technology, to make it distinct from that. And of course, we also wanted ours to be in person, which it will be someday. And then, I try, IBM has so many educational resources. And yes, they're a corporate partner. I try not to be too IBM centric, but it's true. Whenever you're talking to panels or the like, Qiskit and the IBM hackathons and the many kind of publications and the like that IBM puts out are constantly referenced. As the parent of a 7-year-old, he has done the IBM coloring, quantum coloring book, right? So I know that there are other, companies that put together educational materials. I think, the IBM has just clearly, gotten a lot of awareness around their educational programs.
Cool. This regional initiative is clearly a smart move. Are other regions doing the same?
Well, I think, didn't you guys have PNNL give a present? And they do.
Yeah,
I think
Northwest National Labs has the Pacific Northwest Quantum Nexus, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so I think when it comes to kind of regional hubs, many of the universities and national labs that came together to apply to things like the NSF Quantum Leap Challenge Institutes and to apply to the DOE QIS centers, before they even submitted their applications, they formed consortia like this, kind of looser organizations that weren't officially under a specific grant, as a way to kind of help bring the community together. I think the one of the things that I think helped CQE is that we started ours a year or two before some of the other ones. And even though a year or two, you wouldn't think is it a huge difference, I think it really gave us the opportunity to marshal resources and people and start building those those early stage research collaborations. We funded a few little seed awards that have since been really fruitful in terms of planning for and helping to continue to bring that community together for as they were applying for these large scale grants. So there are definitely many regions across the U.S. And the globe that are doing this. I think we got in a smidge early, which I think was very helpful.
Good. Could you expand on how a PhD student could make use of the platform to build a network in the area with industry?
Can make use of the platform.
I think they mean the Chicago Quantum Exchange platform.
Oh yeah. Okay. So like to build relationships with industry. Yeah. So let's say you're a PhD student and you have only ever worked, you've been purely educated and trained within the academy, and you want to understand what your career options are like. So, one are these kind of low touch opportunities, like, you participate in a employer spotlight. You learn what HRL is doing and how they're investing and what they're hiring in. I think one of the great things is these sound like big formal seminars. The reality is, they're very, informal groups, because it's the CQE community. And so, when we have these presentations, people give the presentation, and then there's an opportunity to, ask questions. And very frequently the people who are presenting put their email address in and say, hey, shoot me an email if you have any questions. So I know from one of these things, I know it actually turned into many internships and at least one job offer. So that's kind of like a high touch or a low touch opportunity. Students, of course, it doesn't have to be a CQE PhD student, but let's say you're a PhD student and you have an initial conversation with a company or someone at a company at a conference, and maybe there's a potential for a research collaboration, and they could apply for the QuizNet program and get $10,000 a year in discretionary funding to help support a research collaboration while they're doing their PhD, right? So that's another one. I think our real goal is to make sure that on the kind of microeconomic level, to make sure that if there's a PhD student who has a desire to go into industry, that by the time that they graduate, they have individual contacts with a few different people at companies. So when they're kind of applying and thinking about applying, they have a real in-depth understanding of what those companies are investing in and what their QIS strategies are. So they're not kind of going in blind.
Has CQE explored partnerships with high schools or community colleges?
The QSTEAM award, the NSF award out of Ohio State, the curriculum that's being developed for freshmen at the undergraduate level, the goal is to make that accessible to not only students that are freshmen at R1 research universities, but also small liberal arts colleges, community colleges, and the like. Honestly, pretty much taking the math, which is often the big hurdle, taking the math and minimizing it or pushing it back a year or something like that. So that's one active area on the community college level. At the high school level, we every year when we do the Chicago Quantum Summit, we have a public event where we try to kind of take QIS, and it actually tends to be quantum computing focused, and distill it in a way that's accessible to the broader public. So I think the broader public is, a high school student fits in with that. In previous years, we had Hartmut Nevin from Google speak. We had Talia Gershon from IBM speak. This year we had Scott Aronson from UT Austin speak, and they've done a great job of taking these very complex subjects and framing them in ways that are as easy to understand as possible. And then it also actually always has a fireside chat, so the moderator can ask interesting questions to humanize the experience, but then also kind of help students understand how do you become a quantum scientist, for example. We don't have any we don't have any real kind of solid strategies around interacting with high school students. I think every organization has to prioritize, and thus far we've, I think, prioritized a slightly, more advanced career stage, though we do have some early stage kind of machinations on that.
Good. If you don't have a PhD and can't afford to stop working in order to pursue one, is quantum computing out of reach to those people?
I'm just going to say no, because I'm an optimist. I mean, I think, again, to, tout things like the certificate programs that, that we have, that MIT has. I think that's, certificate programs are usually things that can be done. Our program is essentially a 1-week intensive. Some certificate programs tend to be, an evening thing, 1 evening per week across a 12-week period. I think that's a great way. Again, if you want to kind of have like an introductory experience, I think a lot of companies, have educational materials and the like. I mean, honestly, if you go on YouTube and you, do some searching, there are tons of videos, and I don't know what this person's name is, but there's one person in particular who just does a great job of taking really complex subjects and kind of distilling them down. I don't necessarily know if watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos would help you get a job, but at least it would help you kind of better understand, the broader field.
Yep. So I think that's it. Thank you so much, Kate. That was fantastic. And happy early Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope you all have an enjoyable but safe and socially distanced holiday. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Likewise. Thank you.